So is burnout a big part of your life? I'm Kristen Van Tilburg. I'm here with my friend Nathan Slaughter, and we are talking about burnout and the stories that you tell yourself. So you were saying that you found that sometimes it was what you were telling yourself that was giving you an energy drain.
Yeah, I've found in so many cases throughout my career that whether I was being energized, working 10-hour days, or just feeling drained from barely making an 8-hour day, the difference was between my ears. And it was very much around the story that I was telling and what the work was meaning to me.
Can you turn on the internal microphone and let us hear a little bit of that burnout conversation?
The burnout conversation sounds like they shouldn't be doing this. It sounds like I deserve this, and it goes a lot of times just under the radar of feelings of entitlement that really haven't been addressed. That most of that stuff, whatever happened that triggered it, it's in the past most of the time, right? And so a lot of times the conversation that leads to drain instead of being energized by the work, that's about, okay, this happened and that was wrong. He's wrong. She's wrong. So, to not go into somebody else's stuff and not go into any specific details, there have been just many cases when months down the road, I've realized, okay, I've been holding on to this resentment about a manager, or I've been thinking that in this situation, this is what I should have gotten, and not getting past that, I can look back and say, that's where my energy is going, instead of going into what I can do now and how I can make a difference in this work.
Yeah, when I work with this for myself, what I notice is that these disempowering self stories are like, it's not going to be good enough. It's never been good enough. Nothing I ever do is going to be good enough. And that just promotes this feeling of lethargy and, drain. Burnout is a drained feeling. So when I notice that going on, I have the opportunity to go inside and say, wait a second, that's not how this is. There are infinite possibilities happening in this moment, and I can respond to that, and I can open up to that. I can receive that energetic download of creativity that's always flowing through all people. And so that's why I think mindset work is so critical, is the options, the opportunities, the possibilities, they're right there. But are we going to have this tunnel vision of these narrow views of ourselves? Or are we going to open this up and see, like the big wide world?
So you've been at the two places, and it sounds like we've gone down the same path of getting stuck in a bad mindset and losing energy to that. What do you think has made the difference? Is there anything that you've done that flipped the script, or kind of just made that shift in mindset so that you could move back from being drained to being revitalized?
Nathan, I think the biggest thing is that I have been willing to give up feeling victimized and telling myself a story that the circumstances need to change for me to feel better.
Hmm.
When I found out how empowering it is to change my own mind, the thing that I actually do have some control over. I've spent my time trying to change my husband and my children and my work situation. And the people driving down the road beside me, they need to be different so that I can be happy. Okay, that you get burned out. I got burned out trying that. When I found out that I could actually notice what I'm thinking and change my mind about it, and when I do that, then everything around me can be exactly the way that it is. I might prefer it or not prefer it. I mean, we'd always have preferences. But when I take responsibility for thinking in a way that is, I'm open to the possibilities here. There's a conflict, but there's bound to be a win-win solution. when I think like that, I relate to myself, life, and other people differently. What have you found?
Um, it's very, very much the same way for me, but there's a part of my mind that doesn't think like this, because I know you and I have talked about um, performance, and when I start thinking about high performance, I start thinking about being the driver and being real, just having a tight grip on what my goals are and pushing everything I can to get in those goals. And what I've experienced more is that that actually is very likely, if I run at that pace day in, day out, that's very likely to land me in the burnout zone, because then I start to see every time that we have to make a turn and a shift, because there's always more things outside of our control than within it. I start to see all of those things as disappointment, as rejection, as something that, I could hold on to a negative emotion about. And I just, I guess it's about birth or something very early on, because I just never had the first inclination that a real key to sustaining performance and being at my best, whether that's in my marriage, in my job, or for my kids, a big key is just opening up and saying, I know there are so many great possibilities here, and I'm just focused on one thing that went wrong one time. And I would never imagine that it was kind of like a process of letting go and surrender that would lead to actually being able to perform at a higher level.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive. We have this idea that we need to drive the car, and make it happen and all of that. But I agree with you. It's not that there's anything wrong with goal setting, absolutely not. But when we set our goals, then we need to kind of, it's not like lay back and let it happen, but at the same time, there's this finding of flow where there's inspiration and joy and a desire and a motivation. And that's different than, being run by a to-do list where you're not really anything more than just a robot, uh, ticking off the boxes. Or is that what you mean, or is it something else?
You know, my favorite example for it now, and the robot fits in really well with this, where you're not the robot. But my favorite example for it now is, you've got this list of things to do in the morning, and you're really focused and really excited about getting these things done. You're determined, and there's a lot at stake for you being able to get these things done, because maybe you're going to have to tell a client something you don't want to tell them if you don't get these things done. Maybe you're going to lose a deal. But then somebody on your team tells you at, say, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon that their kid just went to the emergency room. They don't know how well the kid is. They've got to leave. How do you feel about that? Are you mad? Do you feel self-pity? Because now you're going to shoulder the burden of this work? Or do you feel like you have a chance to be a valuable service and show this person what they mean to the team, and just contribute more peace in the situation? And just thinking about, okay, what would happen right now if that was the situation, and where does this fall on it? Kind of clarifies, like, whether I'm reacting from the right place or not. And there are totally other situations where it's kind of like, well, we don't need to take breaks in the middle of the day to watch our favorite show or something. And that's totally different. But this, puts in perspective, like, how are you going to feel internally when something takes you totally off course? Are you going to keep in perspective what it is, and whether it was time to respond appropriately?
I think that's a really brilliant way to frame the whole situation, because we do have different values and sometimes they're competing. the value of supporting a team member, it isn't a constant level every day. It's the same. And if they have a family emergency and you can't let that rise in your priority scale and tell an empowering story about being there for your team members, then I think your performance, maybe not that day, if you rant and rave and have a big fit about it, maybe something will happen that day, but your overall goal of a healthy team and a successful team, you can't meet it if you have this really rigid idea about how things have to go.
So can you kind of tell me like how that plays into life for a nurse? And because I know, and I can only imagine how stressful it can get, just from some of your experience in helping fields where you're on demand, like how does that play out there where there are so many competing demands?
Well, that's the really interesting thing about my work, because the demands that are put on nurses oftentimes are actually physically impossible. I was talking to a nurse the other day who was saying, the admissions floor sent 6 admissions for one shift, and every admission takes a certain amount of time. I mean, it can't take less because there's paperwork and there's forms and there's sheets to change and cleanup to do and all of that stuff. And he was saying nobody down in admissions is thinking about the fact that it is impossible for one person to admit 6 people on one shift.
Mm.
So what do you do about the story you tell yourself when you know that your work environment will put demands on you that no matter if you're peak performing or not peak performing, they can't be met? And so what I try to do is show nurses how to create a mindset about yourself that is dominated by your own values, which of course have to be compatible with hospital rules and all of that, but still you are determining how you feel about yourself, life, and other people by your own thoughts, and not allowing the circumstances to dictate. If you get an impossible assignment, can you have a mindset that says, I'm going to get as close as I can to admitting 6 people, and it's okay with me that I can't do all 6 because I already know the best human in the best place at the best time cannot do 6. Can I be okay with doing what I can do? And that kind of mindset can give you peace and joy in a situation that's overwhelming.
I don't know. I don't know the stats and I don't know what is reasonable, but I know for the way that I deal with expectations, if it's somebody invisible just pushing stuff at me, that kind of shift in mindset could be the difference in whether I can work at a pace of admitting 2 or admitting 4. You talking about, okay, I'm going to embrace the mindset that I am here to do as much as possible, instead of shifting over to the just thinking about all of the things that it could mean of there's nobody here to help. I want to figure out how to communicate this to them, maybe passive aggressively, all of the negative things that actually tear down productivity. And I just think that's so valuable, giving the shift. It's incredible when you're the one carrying it because you get to live a better life and perform better, but it's also incredible for could be the whole health system, really, if everybody gets an opportunity to make that shift.
Yeah, and it has to start with one person. Well, I'm thinking we better wrap this up for today, but I look forward to talking to you again soon, and we can dive into this deeper next time.
This is the same. Thank you so much, Kristen, for thinking of this, and it was a lot of fun to do it.
Bye for now, Nathan.
Bye.